All right, so working capacitor, we got that down. Let's see, let's talk about, these would be specific. My note says capacitors in a DC circuit. Maybe I'll just put that so you know I'm trying to talk in DC circuits. So in a DC circuit, in series will act as an open. Changing pens. So in a DC circuit, we'll put a load in just for cool. That's an open. Yep. So unless it's very large capacitor like this one that will actually take a charge, it will take a charge and you'll get something for a few seconds. But otherwise, a typical capacitor, that is just an open. Don't do that. It's really not going to help you unless you want just a brief moment of current flow. However, in parallel, they are useful. I'll just do that. So we can do it this way. I could make something that's actually useful. Let's see. I was thinking about, probably should have put this in another spot. That way. So a capacitor like that might help filter out and help this switch to open without arcing it. Actually, I think it would make more sense to go this way.
Oh yeah, it's a throwback.
So as this started to open, and instead of arcing across, as it opens, that's a spike. I wanted a spiky thing there. What would happen is the electrons would be going this way through here, and as that started to open, they would say, whoa, wait a minute, there's another path we could take. Let's go this way. So they would all turn around, start running this way and going this way. By the time they got to here and said, it's full, go back, this would be too far open for them to jump across, thus saving that from being arced. In this scenario here, I could see it where if a sudden load was applied, instead of a quick low spike, it could even out the spike. Or if you had a spike, an upward spike in something from a generator, alternator, or something, it could absorb the spike in voltage. Because voltage would tend to go up, which would tend to cause electrons. I didn't know I could do that. What does that mean?
That's laser pointer.
Yeah. I know, but it goes away. It's weird.
You can do a little quick.
Oh, my dog would love that. Yeah, don't ever do it. So anyway,
if the capacitor is full, how would it take a spike?
But remember, I think about it as being full, but if you add more voltage, you can shove more in there.
Okay.
So that's how I look at it. I don't know if it's right.
And then once the switch closes, it discharges.
Yes.
So then it opens, and then it's discharged, it's empty, and you can charge it back up.
Yep. Yeah.
What happens if you use a capacitor that's too big?
Depends on the application. For starters, we're going to see that it's going in an AC circuit, it'll start messing with things where it shouldn't. I'll have to think of an example. What if it's too big?
Takes too much of a load off of the.
I don't know if that would.
Would it be just too slow?
Might be too slow. I was trying to think of what happens with the magneto if it was too big. It'll come to me.
So, when you wire all the switches up in your panel,
yeah,
you throw a capacitor in there. Throw that capacitor in there.
I didn't know.
So, is it not common practice to do
Actually,
that?
I want to say there is a big capacitor up behind my panel. So that's going to put it there, and I can't remember what it is offhand. I think it's across the...
Take it out and see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's across the master switch to keep it from arcing.
Oh, so...
I could be wrong on that. Probably am.
Acts like a buoy. So instead of, like you were saying, that sharp drop, it kind of maintains it.
Not 100%. Let me see. Sorry, I don't have your answers for that one. Let's see. In a series will act as an open. The capacitor will charge up. Current will stop flowing. We saw that over here. In parallel, will act as a reservoir. in parallel will act as a reservoir. So to do that, we can smooth out choppy DC. Protect points in a magneto. Or supply current for a short time. All right, so I don't want to write all this stuff. I do want to explain it. So a capacitor is connected in series and voltage is applied. Even though it's an open, you have to realize there's a large amount of plate area for it to go into. So the voltage, as it starts to build up, even the slightest voltage there is no resistance, will push the current on ahead of it. Boom, there goes the current. It's like, what just happened? A little bit of voltage, current takes off like a rocket. It's backwards from an inductor, right? Yeah. So an inductor, as the voltage started to build, it created a magnetic field that started pushing back on the current. Well, this time, a little bit of voltage, fine, there goes current. Flow is at a maximum. Until the capacitor is charged. Then once it's charged, if it's DC, no more flow. So let me see. No current flows, voltage, yeah. And then the voltage of the capacitor opposed to the battery, nothing happens. Yeah, I'm not doing all that. All right. So let's talk about in AC. Well, maybe before AC, we can get time constants. So time constants. How long does it take for a capacitor to charge?
5 time constants.
You got it. So just like inductors, capacitors take time to charge. I was hoping it would. No joke, yeah, they joke. Take time to charge. How long?
5 time constants.
5 time constants. And I've got a formula. We don't have to take 5 constants to reach what percent charged?
99%.
99.
Above.
All right, so capacitance in AC circuits. Let's do that. All right, because AC is constantly changing, a capacitor will charge and discharge constantly, making it seem like the electrons flow right through it. So if we come back up to here, we'll look at this, we'll change the pin. We'll put in now an AC generator, and we will put in a capacitor and a resistor, and just for the heck of it, a coil. So this will work continuously without any problem at all. This is not an open as far as AC is concerned, assuming, I would say, that the capacitor isn't too small. If it got too small and filled up, then it would stop flowing, so you'd have to have the right size capacitor. So as long as the capacitor is large enough, then current's going to flow out of the generator, come up through here, start filling the plate. As it fills the plate, it's going to push the electrons that on this side this way, and it'll flow. And then it'll switch directions, and it'll go this way, fill up this plate, push those, and go that way. So it just fills them both ways. It works just fine. With AC, there is no problem. But as we talked about, when voltage is applied, maximum current flows
Instantly.
instantly. this one. Go back over here. Capacitance and AC circuits. Let's see. What do I want to write here?
An AC series capacitor that acts as open.
Yep, I was trying to think of a nice way to do that. Because an AC is constantly changing, capacitor will charge and discharge. So in AC, capacitor will continuously charge and discharge. I don't want to write that. Constantly charge and discharge. And what the heck, making it appear as though current flows through it. Current flows through it. There we go. Even though that's not true. It just appears that way. Let's see. When voltage is applied, max current flows instantly. Maximum current flows instantly.
And then that's when voltage falls.
This is because the capacitor plate easily takes a charge, which is the flow of electrons. The electrons have no problem with that, so they just run off. Let's see. We'll just abbreviate this. Therefore, current leads voltage, which is the Iceman, ICE. ICE. The amount of current that a capacitor allows to flow is dependent upon the capacitance of the capacitor and the frequency. Let me see. Well, it just stands to reason. Larger capacitor will allow more electrons to move. A higher frequency will allow more electrons to move. So, let me see. All right, total capacitance. Oops. Computing capacitance in a circuit. And to be brief, it is the opposite of resistors and inductors. Opposite of resistors and inductors. So let's take a look at that. So if we have some capacitors in parallel, which is not what I wrote, in series. We have them in series, then capacitance total is equal to 1 over C1 plus 1 over C2 plus 1 over C3 over 1, which is the complete opposite of resistors and inductors. Is it not?
Yes.
And the reason why is because as electrons flow and start to fill this up, they're going to do what to here? They're going to take these electrons and push them that way, which will come to this one, which will then push these that way. And so, in a way, we're having kind of a diminished amount of capacitance because you've got to push them to one, push them to the next, push them next, push them to the next. So that is why your capacitance total would be smaller than the smallest capacitor.
How would electrons get to those wires in the middle? Like,
Well, they're built with electrons. You think about it, it's a material that has atoms, and the atoms have electrons, and so there they are. I know how they get there. Well, and they're going to spend their, and then you think about it, they'll spend their entire lives right there, and they'll never go anywhere but that. How sad is that? All right, but if we have in parallel, then C total equals C1 plus C2 plus C3, on and on and on. And the reason why is because we take all this plate area and add it to all this plate area and add it to all this plate area. And so it's kind of like all three of those are just one big plate, or however many you have. So that's why in parallel, you just add them up. Let me see. Oh, I said all that. So, changing pens. Nobody reminded me. Thank you. Total capacitance is the amount of capacitance but that does not tell us the actual opposition to current flow. Which is kind of a weird thing to say at this point because we talked about, at least I talked about, the fact that, let me fix this, that a capacitor allows the electrons to just run away. And that implies that there's never any resistance, but yet a capacitor does have an opposition to the flow of electrons at some point. It's a blockage, right? Why is the mouse button? I don't know what I had in there wrong. So capacitors do offer a resistance, if you will, just like an inductor. But it's not resistance. It is something else. And it would be called, if you can guess,
Conductive resistance.
capacitive.
Capacitative.
capacitive,
Capacitive.
What's the other word for resistance?
inductive reactance. So capacitive,
Reactive.
Man, it took us a few times, but we got it.
capacitive reactance. That is the opposition of current flow in a circuit. The opposition opposition of current flow in a circuit. It is. I'm surprised you didn't finish a sentence. Expressed in ohms. But due to phase shift is not considered resistance, which you wrote on the last one. It is represented as
It's like a game show host right now.
X of C. Or X of period. X of C.
Is the opposition just the plates being full?
Yeah, that's my guess. I don't have it here. All right, so capacitive reactance, which we will express as C period R period to save time and C world, is inversely proportional to the capacitance and frequency. In other words,
Capacitance goes up.
reactance or capacitive reactance will decrease if capacitance or frequency increases. If you think about why that would be, so we will have less reactance if we have a larger capacitor that can handle all the current, or the frequency increases because
It's charging and discharging at a quicker rate.
let's see. Oops. Trying to do it one-handed. For E, Q, U, E, and C, Y. Frequency increases because, say it,
It discharges and charges at a quicker rate.
discharging and charging at a quicker rate. So I would look at it like this. Well, maybe we have a smaller capacitor that would have filled up, but it changed frequency in reverse so fast, didn't have time. So that would do it too. All right, let's see. The formula is, change pen so we can do it, x of c equals 2 pi fc 1 over. So it's the inverse. Where x of c equals capacitive reactance expressed in ohms we have F, which equals frequency
In hertz.
in hertz. It hurts. And capacitance. Oops, I should keep the formula. Frequency and C equals capacitance in Fs. What's F? Farads. All right. So let's see. Let's determine the capacitive reactance of a circuit the capacitive reactance of a circuit which, let's see, has a frequency of 60 hertz and has a capacitance of 100 microfarads, because remember farad is a very large number, so we're using micros and picos a lot in this. So what would my capacitive reactance be? So the formula is x of c equals 2 pi fc over 1. So 2 times 3.14 times the frequency of 60 times 100 micros.
26.52.
And 1 over. All right.
Very small number.
0.4 zeros. So
I'm kind of ending up with 6.28 times 60 times 0.0001 over 1, which ends up being, what'd you get ultimately?
I got 20.
26.52.
Yeah, 26.52.
Ultimately, I ended up getting 26.54
Or 5.4.
ohms.
5.4 or 5.3?
I said 5.2.
Doesn't matter. It depends on how you hit that. As long as you got 26, now's a perfect time to talk about this. What are we going to do about this? We are going to be doing equations now that are going to just span a long way. And you are going to start getting more and more off as you go, the more you round. So try not to round. If possible, I would not do 3.14. I would literally hit the pi key. That will help you a lot. So I would
Did you do it by 3.14? Is that why you got?
I
I did it by pi.
probably on my
Yeah.
example, I probably use the pi button here. I'm not going to write it out to infinity.
It's
So
like 26.5.
2
5258. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
times
it was-
pi
you said 5,
times
4,
60
Yeah,
times
it's just
20.
that, like you were saying, the rounding
Yeah.
of that. Because if you do just 3.14, it probably does get you 0.53.
This time I got 26.52582. All right, so I'm going to be able to, on your test, it won't be fill in. You're going to have to just write out your answers and turn it in a sheet of paper, and I can tell if you figured it out or not.
Within a degree of variance.
It's obvious. It's reasonably obvious. You either get it or you don't. Okay, so we have discussed so far in an AC circuit resistance, which is no different than direct current, right? Okay. Then we discussed inductors, which have inductive reactance, which have an which cause what to happen? Current and voltage.
In opposition to current.
Opposition to current.
And voltage.
What leads? What lags?
Voltage leads the current.
Voltage leads,
The current.
and the current lags. And then, and the formula for finding out inductive reactance is X of L equals
2 pi FL.
2 pi FL. Then we discussed capacitors, which have the opposite effect of inductors. So the capacitor will counteract an inductor. So if you have a lot of inductors in a circuit, you add capacitors to balance it, you bring them back in phase. So while an inductor will cause it to go out of phase, a capacitor causes it to go out of phase, the two working together keep it in phase. So one slows it down, one speeds it up, they cancel each other out. So, but we have capacitors, and we talked about how to add capacitors, we talked about how to add inductors, everybody should have that down. And we have the formula now for figuring out capacitive reactance, which is X of C equals 2 pi FC 1 over. That brings us to a new thing, and we're going to start putting it all together now. All together now. Called impedance. That was you who said that, huh? I never even noted it.
Yep.
Oh, you almost did, because I always forgot.
Hey, everyone else brought it back.
Impedance. Impedance. All right. This is what we're going to talk about. So, an AC circuit can be described. That's how I was going to do that. Can be described by its components. All right, so purely resistive. That's only resistors, would be an R-type circuit. Purely capacitive. Would be a capacitive circuit, and that would not be a happy circuit by any means whatsoever.
Sad.
It was very sad. What is that going to do? It's just a sad.
It's all sad.
Give up. Purely capacitive. Purely inductive. Equals L. Yes. Purely inductive. Or we can start, okay, so purely resistive. Would that be in phase or out of phase?
In phase.
Yep, we'll have it in phase. Won't have any problems. purely capacitive, it will be
Out of phase.
out of phase with the
Amperage leading the
amperage leading, and L would be
Out of phase.
out of phase.
Voltage leading amperage.
Okay. Then we can have like an RC type circuit. What would that be?
A resistive capacitive.
Resistive capacitive. We could have an RL, resistive inductive. We could have RCL, which is
Resistive, capacitive, inductive.
right, and that's where we're going to spend our time. Okay, could we probably have CL in there too? I just didn't write it. I don't know if there's any kind. I think you're mostly going to see the RCL type circuits. So any circuit that is not purely resistive, any circuit that is not purely resistive must have total opposition to current flow. Current flow. Flow represented. Yeah. I paused. Representative.
Must have two opposite.
I know. I don't even like this whole sentence. I should have wrote something else. Any circuit that's not purely resistive, I shouldn't say must, will have, I'm just going to leave it, current flow represented as got what I was writing, represented. Yeah, that's not the word. Help me out here. Represented as impedance. 60. Wow. Okay, I'm going to slow down. As impedance. 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 Yep. Represented as Z. There. It did do that for me. Represented as the letter Z.
A little confused by that sentence. Not purely resistive must have two opposition.
Oh, that's because it got all
Wonky.
you got all wonky with the spelling.
Total opposition.
Yeah. That's where this comes into play. Oops.
Your YouTube channel.
PowerPoint. I'm waiting for you to not be like all hung up here. Oh good, everything's gonna like lock up on me. Oh, that's why. Aw. All that for this. It is.
Oh, it's not gonna work.
Come on. Not gonna work. It'll start like as soon as I
Sony
go.
deleted it.
Can you
Go
just
off
do
something else.
whatever the video was gonna do?
Yes, I would. It's vector.
You know the words.
He is committing crime with both direction and magnitude. Oh yeah.
Is that just an image that you grabbed?
No, it's not. It's actually a.
Well, it looks like it's. You see how
Trying to do something.
you
I
see
know.
the corners there? It might have been.
Well, it's because I'm not in the
Oh.
slideshow mode. So anyway, all right. Enough of that.
Sweet.
Because the reason why that was relevant is because impedance has both direction and magnitude. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So impedance. Impedance is not the sum of each, is not the sum of each. Each what? R, x of L, x of C. It's not the sum of each, but a vector sum. Yeah, an actor sum, yes, that's exactly what I was hoping that you would do. But a vector sum. And I shall show you what I mean. And then we'll go back to this. So just what I mean by a vector sum is we are going to be computing x of L minus x of C will give us a vertical. Resistance will give us a horizontal. And our vector sum is going to be Z for impedance. So it's a vector sum. So the higher the x of L or x of C, the higher this is going to get, which is going to cause Z to get longer. The longer the R gets, the longer the Z is going to get.
More acute.
Yes, so we're going to work on that. But first, we're going to back up just a little bit, and we are going to talk about this word from our sponsors.
Can you go back to the drawing real quick?
A word for your sponsors. How much do they pay you?
Not enough.
I just got a raise. It's double what I used to get paid.
About 350? What, double or nothing?
It was nothing. Now it's doubled. So
Like my bingo.
what's that joke? Something about when I was young. I was young and poor. Now I'm old and poor. Something to the effect of I had nothing and now I have most of it left. I still have most of it. All right. Because x of L, this is not going to work. I know right now. X of L. Okay, x of C and x of L. I can play that game. X of L and x have opposite effects. Let me see. Is that what I wanted to write? Yep. We can use algebra. I just lost half of you. I'm out.
I signed up to turn wrenches, not do math.
Use algebra to find total reactance. Total reactance. Let's see, for a CL circuit as follows. Yeah, I'm just going to total reactance. I like that. I'm going to leave it at that. We will let inductive reactance be positive. Oops. I paused. Will be positive because it causes voltage to lead. Voltage to lead. Capacitive will be negative. Negative because it causes voltage to lag. There we go. tried so hard.
Sir.
Yes.
So in reality, we're just pushing. I'm just gonna be polite.
Let him speak.
I lost her. So in reality, we're just pushing voltage back and forth, and current isn't doing anything. Because
Does everything.
Current's just sitting on the sidelines, just watching.
Yeah.
current is constant. Here, current is constant. We're just making either voltage go forward or backwards.
Yeah, I see your point. It depends on your perspective.
Okay.
So you could take the perspective, current is always the constant, it never varies. The voltage is the one going ahead or behind. Or you could look at it, voltage is the constant and current is either ahead or behind.
Okay.
It's okay it doesn't matter how you want to look at it. And the hard part is when you do a diagram of the sine wave and then you superimpose the sine wave of a voltage, then you superimpose the sine wave of what's happening with the amps. If you take a snapshot right in the middle, right in the middle, it's like, well, if we just kind of took a slice somewhere in here, it's like, well, you don't know what started what. So all you just sitting there is looking at it going, well, it's out of phase. One is over here and one is over there.
Which came first, the chicken or the
Which
egg?
came first? You don't know. I would take it, well, if this is in line, it moved just a little bit this way, I would say that's how much it's off, right? So it's not really important. I would say which is really in front, which is really behind. But the way we're going to do it, you want to finish that text?
Yes.
Okay, you got it.
Taking notes too.
Got it, taking notes? Okay. Good answer.
So I have a little question about.
I'm afraid of it.
Well,
Is it a little?
well, not really. No.
Yeah.
It's a series of little questions. So you're saying about a capacitive circuit and an inductive circuit, and you want them to be in phase for them to be efficient. Does that just mean that there's more capacitive components in one if it's a capacitive circuit and more inductive circuits? So
Yes.
if you build a circuit with a capacitor or say an inductor in it, are you obligated to put so you have an inductor in there, you're obligated to put capacitors in there?
Only if you want it in phase.
And so if you don't need it in phase for some reason, you just don't care.
Then it becomes inefficient. We're going to look at that.
Okay, so that's inefficient is not necessarily bad, is what you're saying, or is that?
Well, depends. If you're living at home with your parents paying for the electricity, or are you paying for it yourself?
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm thinking about is in the idea of the magneto, where the the primary coil,
Yeah.
primary two,
Yeah.
is
Oh, it's all inductive.
inductive.
There's no
It's just
capacitor in that series.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's got to be out of phase then. No. Or,
Mm,
Well, if it's
possibly yes, but it's a single component. I think it'd be
right,
two.
So
Yeah.
it wouldn't matter.
So they're saying it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is like,
Yeah, then it wouldn't matter. And he's got an example of something that is purely inductive and then there's a capacitor. So they figured out, okay, it doesn't matter. So, okay, so this is the formula here. You can manipulate it so that it's a little bit easier to understand. The thing that you want to end up with is if x of t is negative, then the circuit is capacitive. That's what you want to end up with. You want to know, is your circuit mostly inductive or mostly capacitive? Ideally, it's the same, but you're not going to get any examples in here where it's going to end up being the same. And x of t is positive, then the circuit is inductive.
So it's x of L equals, or x of L plus negative x of C.
Yes. So you don't have to make it as complicated as that is. But you could simply say, we'll get into an example and I'll show you how we just make it a little bit easier. But that is the formula.
So if it's just, so if the answer is 0, then the circuit is just, it would be considered
if you have absolutely an equal amount of x of L and x of C, then x of T is going to equal 0. And if it's 0, when you go to figure out impedance with your vector sum, then this line right here is only going to be right there. And so Z will equal R.
Okay.
That's not going to happen in here.
And R is
Resistance.
resistance.
Yeah. So if I had, I don't know, x of L equaled 10 and x of C equals 20, then I would probably just do 10 minus 20 equals
Negative 10.
-10. -10 means
Capacitive.
capacitive. Just I wouldn't do all that right there. And if I turned it around where I said x of L is 20, x of C is 10, then x of L equals 20 minus 10. So x of L equals a positive 10, so it's inductive. It does not be that hard. And if it's x of C, the way a lot of books show it, I'm sorry, this is x of L, but if you have x of C, they draw it down this way. I'm not going to do that, just so you know. I will just call it x of C and make all of my triangles going upwards because it's just so much easier to kind of look at life that way, I think. All right, so as much as I would love to keep going, I really would. I think I have to stop here. Well, last point, because resistance does not have an effect on phase, it cannot be just added to reactance. We need to figure out a vector. And a vector is a quantity having both magnitude and direction. Oh, yeah. So we've already covered that. So, all right.
Sir, I have one more question.
Yes, one more question.
So, looking at the triangle, and you have your
Wait.
It works. Oh, it works.
You said it.
Why?